You know what gets brought up on this channel a lot? Cocaine. Nope, that's not right. You know what gets brought up on this channel a lot, or what I've at least been writing about a lot recently? The 80s. People had a lot of access to cocaine, and they just did the most wild shit. There was no social media to hold anybody accountable. You couldn't exactly report it because it was like, you know, he said, she said, and it just ended up being a big bunch of craziness. The craziest time was in 1986. Now, around this time, America developed this infatuation with Australia.
As I'm sure you remember, in the late 1980s, the U.S. experienced a short-lived infatuation with Australian culture. For some bizarre reason, the Aussies thought this would be a permanent thing. Of course it wasn't.
An unhealthy obsession where Australia was the biggest tourist destination that anyone had ever heard of. Obviously, Lord of the Rings hadn't been made yet, and then it became us. Has Australia got Hobbiton? Nah. Do we? Yes, that's why I said it. Anyway, 1986, this movie Crocodile Dundee comes out. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. But it somehow managed to convince the rest of the world that Australians wrestle crocodiles and drink beer straight from cowboy boots for breakfast every single morning. Paul Hogan became a global icon as Mick Dundee, who was pitched as an outback survivalist who's a fish out of water in New York City, and he doesn't know any of the social cues. It's like some sort of kangaroo on roller skates. That's a terrible analogy. Who wrote this? I did. I wrote this. But what if I told you Mick Dundee was based on a real guy? And it sounds pretty far-fetched, I know, but he was based on a real person, and that dude got zero money from his likeness. But that's not even the worst bit. After this movie came out, this dude's life turned into an absolute dumpster fire. It was a chaotic mixture of fame, survival, drugs, and full-blown paranoia that ended in the worst possible way. The real Crocodile Dundee's name was Rod Ansell. And trust me, this story makes Crocodile Dundee look like an afternoon at the petting zoo.
The past is sacred. I found more than I expected.
Like most animal wrangling nut jobs born in Australia, R.I.P. Steve Irwin, Rod Ansell was born in North Queensland. But like most people who prefer danger to regular life, Rod Ansell preferred the Northern Territory, which is where a lot of deadly things are, like more Australians. But seriously, North Queensland and Northern Territory, really easy place to die. Like if you're looking for the most gruesome possible way to die, or if you just want to dehydrate or starve to death, just get a one-way train ticket out there. Just head on up. Do you like crocodiles? Doesn't matter, there's heaps of them anyway. Northern Territory is where this dude proved himself, okay? By 15, he was hunting wild buffalo barefoot. 15 years old. Barefoot, outback Australia, Northern Territory. I feel sick. This man walked around in a place where ants like the taste of humans with zero shoes on. It gets a little bit controversial here, okay? Because in 1977, at age 22, he went on what he told everybody was supposed to be a fishing trip. So in the river where he was fishing, his boat was randomly capsized by what he described as something big. It's Australia. That's most... He ended up stranded for 56 days in the northernmost rivers of Northern Territory. I don't want to have to tell you how much weird goes on up there, how many animals want to kill you. Snakes, spiders, alligators, potentially sharks because he was that close to the ocean. All he had on him was a rifle, a knife, 2 dogs, and no fresh water. None. If I forget my water bottle on a 30-minute walk, I am already considering stagnant puddles. No question. But our mate Rod, old Crocodile Dundee himself, drank buffalo blood. I don't want to pass out right now, but just know, that's fucked up. He slept in trees to avoid being a crocodile's midnight snack, shot wild cattle for food and cooked it over an open fire, and at one stage got into a fight with a 5-meter crocodile because the crocodile was eyeing up his dogs like they were on the menu. Hot dogs. He was rescued, but obviously not before becoming like a media sensation. Weirdly, a lot of people think his story wasn't true. He waited 8 weeks to tell anybody what happened. But once he did let people in and finally tell them that he survived what most people can't even dream of, a lot of people were incredibly impressed. Cut to 3 years later, Broski's found himself a honey, they get married, they pop out 2 boys, and they were living a simple, stripped-back life in Northern Territory. I believe she was a school teacher and he was just... bro, hard as f***. I don't really know what else to say. He also had a bit of income behind him at this point because a documentary filmmaker had come all the way up to Northern Territory to interview him and have him replay the story step by step. This ended up becoming a documentary film which then evolved into a book which sold hundreds of thousands of copies around Australia, netting Rod a little bit of cash. Rod's survival story obviously made more serious headlines later on when it gained international attention. He even scored an interview on the BBC when Michael Parkinson came out to Sydney. For those of you who don't know Michael Parkinson, one of the most famous interviewers of all time, interviewed people like Muhammad Ali and Billy Connolly, a fantastic presenter, big RIP. He was flown down to Sydney at BBC's expense. He did the interview barefoot and during the interview said that he was so confused by what that second toilet was in his hotel, referring to the bidet. I hope he didn't drink from it. I wouldn't be surprised if he drank from it, simply because, like, it's got to be better than buffalo blood. I could be wrong. He instantly became Australia's quirkiest national treasure. Uh-oh. Can you hear that? It's the sound of intellectual property theft. Enter Aussie legend Paul Hogan. Hogan took one look at Rod Ansell's story and was like,
Yeah, bro, I'm turning that into a movie.
and boom, just like that, Crocodile Dundee was born. He copied his whole flow, word for word, bar for bar. Both characters were white Australians that were fully immersed in an Aboriginal tribe. They both spoke the fluent dialect of the Arnhem Land people in Northern Territory. Their stories were so incredibly close that Rod's name started to appear in the headlines again because anyone could see that this movie was about him. Crocodile Dundee itself was made with only 10 million US dollars. Sorry. It was made with 10 million Australian dollars, which is like 5 million US dollars. And then it managed to turn over 350 million US dollars in the box office, making it the second highest grossing movie of 1986 behind Top Gun. That was the only movie that was bigger in the year 1986. It's also the highest grossing Australian film of all time, a record it holds to this day. It made Paul Hogan a household name, and it sparked that weird American tourist trend where everyone wanted to come to Australia in the 80s. There was a whole ad campaign, where the bloody hell are you, all that stuff. If you want a video about that, let me know. It was pretty wild, to be honest. Now, you think our mate Rod would have cashed in at this point, right? Crocodile Dundee's about me. Maybe Paul Hogan might throw me a bone. Maybe Paul Hogan thought to himself, hey, this guy Rod has made me disgustingly rich and hugely famous worldwide. Maybe I should pay him something. And you couldn't have been more wrong if you thought that. Rod Ansell made $0 from this. Not 1 Australian cent. He even tried to start a Crocodile Dundee themed tourist business where he would take people out and show them where he was stranded for 56 days. And Paul Hogan's lawyers shut it down so fast, dude. Oh my god. Rod was obviously furious. Someone had taken his likeness, his story, and essentially made bajillions of dollars off it. And he was sitting there in Northern Territory with nothing. And if you think that's where it ends with our mate Rod, oh boy, you could not be more wrong. After failing to profit from this in any way, Rod's life just fell apart. He lost all of his land due to a dispute over cattle. A noxious weed infected his land and virtually killed any crops he had growing, which if you manage to grow crops in Northern Territory, firstly, good on you, but what is it? Like, are you growing crops of sand? There's no water there. His wife left him and took the boys because he was slowly descending into madness. And he started growing weed because fucking 420 blaze it, my guy. No, to be fair, he needed to make money somehow, right? And the reason why he needed to make money is because he loved amphetamines. Like a lot. Like a World War II soldier's level of amphetamines. It's not good for you. He also lost the respect of his Aboriginal family because of their predilections about him being in film or media. A common Aboriginal belief is that if a photo or video is taken of you, then part of your soul goes with that photo or video. They thought if he was truly one of them, then he wouldn't have pursued this. And before you know it, our once beloved barefoot bushman had spiraled into complete paranoia and was screaming at all of his neighbors how the Freemasons had kidnapped his sons. And what do you do when you're descending into madness and you think shadowy organizations are out to get you? That's right, you go full Mad Max and grab an entire artillery of guns. Shout out Mel Gibson, baby. In 1999, Rod went on a full psychotic rampage. He believed that someone in the caravan park where he was living had sold him out so that the Freemasons came and got his sons, and he responded by putting 6 bullets into their caravan while they were asleep. He injured one of the locals and disappeared into the bush, which, I mean, I wouldn't follow him in there. Probably knows that better than I do. A roadblock was then set up to stop him from leaving, and after several hours during a chaotic gunfight where he was screaming at police that they were next and you're all gonna die and all this kind of stuff, he was eventually shot and killed. But not before shooting and fatally injuring a very well-respected officer in the area. So let's recap, right? This dude grows up, not a penny to his name, goes out, makes a life for himself, something tragic happens, and then someone else takes a story about it and runs with it. And then this dude is held as, you know, like he's not a bush ranger, he's not a hero, he's not someone that people look up to. Obviously, he's a dude who had a psychotic episode and there was no one really around to help. Rod Ansell's life started as an epic tale of survival, and then it quickly devolved into a cautionary tale about fame, drugs, and a shitload of bad decisions. Thankfully, his Aboriginal family forgave him and he is now buried in Arnhem Land after receiving a full Aboriginal death ceremony. Meanwhile, Crocodile Dundee remains a famous Australian staple, being parodied and quoted in everything from Hollywood movies to The Simpsons. And where are they now? Paul Hogan, still kicking, man. Still a famous Australian legend, millions of dollars, tons of movie credits to his name, and probably zero guilt. I reckon if Rod had known how this was going to turn out, he probably would have stayed in the bush a little bit longer. Bit of a sad note to end on, but I mean, dude, what a story. This is wild, you know, like it's just one of those things. Anyway, new videos every fortnight. Like and subscribe. That's not a like, that's a like. I tried, okay? I tried. Peace and have a good day.
The past is sacred. I found more than I expected.